Hey guys, my name is Jason with Mount Baker Mining and Metals, and on today's video we're going to be crushing up and smelting some of these generator brushes that a customer sent over. And these things are supposed to be about 60 to 65% silver or so by weight. So we're going to crush them up, we're going to grind them up into powder, I'm going to mix up some flux, and then we'll get them in our furnace, melt them down, and see if we can recover some silver from these. All right, I got these weighed out at 250 grams worth. Okay, here's our stuff all crushed up. I was hoping to get a little bit finer. Some of these big pieces might be a little bit of a problem, but we'll see if we can burn them up. Supposedly, this is just a carbon matrix with silver in it as the conductor. And so there's not going to be a lot of stuff to flux off. So I'm just going to mix in 50 grams of borax and 50 grams of soda. Mix it around. We're not going to use a collector metal this time because there's so much silver in there. It should act as pretty much its own collector metal. So we'll get this mixed up. I'm going to put it in a little fire clay crucible. And we'll get this firing away and hopefully pour, I don't know, 100, 150 grams of silver out of it. We started with 250, so I don't know, whatever 2/3 of 250 is, 100 and 150, 160, somewhere in there. All right, so let's see what we got here. There's actually a bunch of carbon. So that carbon from those brushes is all on top there. Probably dump that off. But I really want that to go away. I don't see any silver beads in it or anything, so it looks like it kind of came clean, but still you don't want a bunch of carbon sitting there on top, if you can help it. And maybe if we got a bunch of silver on the bottom, we don't care. But we'll take a look here and see what we got. I can still see there's carbon kind of mixed in there. I ended up adding an extra 400 grams of borax and soda mix. So we have a total of 250 grams of soda and 250 grams of borax in there. And I needed to add that much to get some kind of fluid mass down below. With so much carbon, it just kind of sat there and really didn't do anything. And I also tried to run a really oxidizing flame to try and oxidize, burn off some of that carbon, but that didn't work very well either. So let me break this open and see what we got. Oh, so we did get a lump of silver. Here's our silver block. And we ended up with 78, almost 79 grams. All right, so now what I got is I got our slag here, and I've run it back through the jaw crusher and the little pulverizer and got it kind of pulverized up as best I can. And I'm going to pan it out. And what I'm going to do here is, if we lost a bunch of silver beads in the slag, if they didn't come down and collect in that button that we had, they'll be suspended in the slag. And since I've crushed it and pulverized them, I've hopefully liberated them, and they'll pan out in the bottom of a pan just like you would for placer gold. So let me get this pan down and we'll see what we got. All right, so here's what I got in my pan. And there's obviously some bigger chunks of metal in here, but all this dark gray stuff here is all really heavy. So I believe that's a bunch of little silver, probably beads. So we didn't get very good recovery in that first one. And because this stuff doesn't grind really, really fine in the pulverizer, there's probably a lot of this left in the slag that just didn't get liberated. So we're going to have to come up with a better solution than that first test to recover all this silver. All right, so just like in my other gold videos, I took all the concentrates from that pan I just did, and I funneled them down into a blue shop rag. I've kind of wrung out the water, and now I'm going to put them in this furnace and cupel. There's a dish in there. I'm going to burn off all the shop towel stuff there, melt all that silver. I'm going to add a little bit of lead to it just to get the process started, and then the lead will oxidize away and leave our silver from our panning cons, and we can kind of figure out how much silver we lost and judge kind of our recovery from that. All right, guys, so here's our little bit of silver I recovered from those panning concentrates we did when we panned the slag. And let's get a weight on this. So it's about 7 3/4 grams. So we ended up with about 10% more by panning that slag. And just kind of shooting from the hip here, I figured we may have recovered 1/3 to 1/2 of the silver that was in the slag. So let's say it's 15 grams. So altogether, there may be close to 90 grams or so of silver in 250 grams worth of those brushes. Well, I wasn't very happy with our previous results, and so I'm going to try something different. I'm going to take some of this Portland cement here, and in my furnace, I'm going to make just a little dished kind of, I guess it's a crucible or a cupel. I'm just going to make a little pile of Portland cement in there and make a little depression in it, and I'm going to break up some of those brushes and set them around in there and try and oxidize them just in place. And I can add some potassium nitrate to them as an oxidizer. I can't use a whole lot of flux because the Portland cement will get eat up by the flux, but that's my next trial. Is I'm just going to try and oxidize them without any flux and see if I can leach the silver out of them that way. All right, there's a little dish I made. It's kind of hokey, but for our experiment, we'll see if it works. So now let me crush up some more of those brushes like I did earlier in that little jaw crusher, and we'll put them in there and get this cooking. All right, guys. Well, I just grabbed this little pillar here of silver and pulled on. I was going to try and pull the metal part out, but I got the whole litharge encrusted chunk of Portland cement, and you can see all these little silver beads. I'm going to crush these up and get those panned out, and then the huge puddle of silver. So I think it did pretty good. A couple things. This was really just an experiment. I would not suggest doing this with lead on a large scale. And I have some stuff coming that I'm going to like to try. It's going to be bismuth, and you can, instead of doing the lead, you can use bismuth in exactly the same way with exactly the same materials. And bismuth isn't nearly as toxic as lead is. So the bismuth is going to be an interesting way to do this. And also, I didn't quite oxidize. There's just a little bit right there that I pulled off that glob in the middle. I didn't quite get all those brushes oxidized. There's just that little tiny piece left there. But I'm going to, let's pull this big chunk out, see how much it weighs, and then we'll try and clean up the rest of these little beads out here. And I may even put them back in my electric furnace and get them cupelled in a real cupel and get it all formed into one nice silver button. But one last thing, all this stuff came out of 140 grams worth of those brushes. Here's a few of those little silver beads that I panned out. I didn't crush them up fine enough, so I didn't get all of them out, but there's the bigger ones. So I'll take these, I'll combine them over here with this big chunk I got in here. That's just borax. And then I'll just melt all this down. I'll clean that silver up. We'll pour it in our cone mold, and then we can get a good weight on it and figure out a good percentage weight silver those brushes were. All right, guys, let's check out what we got here. It's probably still really hot, but there's our silver. We'll just get it knocked off of there and whew. There we go. Get it cleaned up a little bit here. But it separates from the slag real nice and easy. Really nice little finish. All right, well, here's our little block of silver. Ends up weighing 91 grams. Out of 140 grams of brushes. So yeah, that's right about 2/3, I think. 65%, somewhere in there. So we actually got really pretty good recovery using that lead method. All right, guys, so our experiment turned out pretty well. We got our 65% or so recovery, which is what we were hoping for. So it shows there's a lot of silver in those brushes. Again, I really don't like using the lead as a collector. It's just really toxic, and even though not much gets off into the atmosphere, it's pretty nasty stuff. So I'm really excited about trying this bismuth stuff. I should have bismuth here in a couple days, and I'm excited to make some new videos using bismuth as a collector metal, and then also oxidizing it away in the cupel. So look for those coming up. But if I was going to do this on a larger scale, I would get more of a roasting dish type of thing instead of a cupel. And that way, any oxides that form wouldn't actually get absorbed by the container. It would float on top, and it would have to interact with the carbon. So you could envision like a large dinner plate type of thing with a very thin layer of bismuth on it that you could sprinkle this carbon dust or these little small carbon chunks onto. And as the bismuth oxidized, it would interact with the carbon, go back to bismuth metal, and the whole process would recycle until these brushes were all used up. And then you could add more and continually enrich that puddle of bismuth with silver, and you could do that essentially all day long. And at the end of the day, you could pour off the bismuth silver alloy and cupel it in a final cupel and recover all your silver. You could recycle all that bismuth by taking the cupel and crushing it up, smelting it down with some carbon, reducing all the bismuth back to metal, and then reusing it the next day or the next time you did it. So that would be my longer term goal if I was going to do this on a large scale. But again, I think we proved the point that you need to oxidize away the entire brush. And one of the best ways to do that I found was by oxidizing these metals and having it interact with the carbon. If you guys have any thoughts or ideas on a better way to do this, please let me know by an email, or you can leave a comment in the comment section below. And you can find our contact information in the description below. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next video.